You know who else is here besides Dr. Josh Moody? Everyone's favorite cranky arborist, John Palmer. Welcome back, John.
Well, I don't know. Can you be cranky and a favorite as well?
Yes,
I don't
absolutely.
know.
Yes, two truths.
Just like Garfield.
Oh yes. That's okay. All right. I'll have to think about that one.
Do you like lasagna?
I do. I make a fantastic lasagna. As a matter
I love lasagna.
Coincidence? Do you have a relative named Opie?
No, I don't. My
OD? OD.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think it was Odie.
Odie. Or Normal, perhaps.
Yes. My daughter had a Garfield game as well as actually had a Garfield blanket. So she was my oldest is a big Garfield.
We've unlocked the mystery. Here it is. John Palmer is an ISA board certified master arborist. And he and I are both convinced that whatever you're going to do to your shrubs, your grass, your trees, your plants,
Probably wrong.
it's wrong. And he's here to tell you not only why it's wrong, but what you should do differently.
Well,
And
that's nice and cheery over your morning coffee.
it's true, though. We have fun with that because you are cranky for the plants. You're not mad at us.
Cranky but helpful.
You're protecting the plants because
Well,
we're doing it wrong.
In theory, and I have a couple of theories. One of them is I'm not a big fan of sincerity. And people are like, what? Like,
Yeah.
well, not that I'm a fan of insincerity. The problem is it's possible to be sincerely wrong. And your trees don't care if you're sincerely wrong.
That's right.
If you do something incorrect, and again, I have no problem with homeowners, property owners just doing the best that they can. I have no problem. Where I start to get exceptionally cranky is people that take money to do things wrong. It's like, listen, would you want your doctor not to have a real understanding of the human body? You know, would you like your electrician to really not understand the fundamentals of electricity? So why would you have a plant person who really knows nothing about plants? They know how to operate machinery. Cool, you can teach anybody that. But if you don't understand the basics of biology and horticulture and arboriculture and all those things, hydrology, pedology, the study of soils.
Podiatry. Wait.
You've taken a step too far.
No,
a
that's
bridge too far there.
Yeah, it felt like it would fit. Now, in your, if I'm being honest, you said as long as people are doing their best. Most of us are not doing our best. We go, look it's a tree. I should cut that branch off now because it's bothering me. And that's not my best, is it, John?
Well, it might be because
What?
you have no time.
I've got an internet in my pocket.
That's true. You do have that, but the internet is basically an echo chamber for dumb ideas. So once it gets out there, it's the old adage about a lie gets halfway around the world before the truth has a chance to put its pants on, which actually is not Mark Twain. It's not Will Rogers. It's not Winston Churchill. It goes back to
It's John Palmer.
Jonathan Swift in the 1600s, actually.
Oh.
But anyway, a lie gets out there, it gets amplified and magnified. All you have to do is just do search for like mature tree taproot, and you'll actually see all the pictures you'll see of that are people's fabrications. It's artwork. Like, yeah, but it's not reality. So it's those.
So I am doing my best. I feel better.
Yes, you're still killing your trees, but you feel better about it. Like I say, I'm a nerd. I have no social life. All I do is read books and read research studies and things like that. My daughter leaves me alone, and my oldest daughter never contacts me because they know I'm just, reading a book or falling asleep reading a book or reading something on the internet because my goal is education. Education to me is the most important thing because if we, it was an old political line back from the 80s. It's like, not that our friends are wrong. It's just that they know so many things that just aren't so. That was Ronald Reagan, by the way.
That's pretty good. Somebody texted to say, he's the Lorax.
Yes, and I'm okay except for the fact that that's been overplayed now for about 400 years. So okay, it's good. But I don't speak for the trees. The trees are already speaking. I'm just kind of an interpreter.
That Lorax, what did he know? Nothing. He's a little furball guy.
But it's Dr. Seuss, so everybody's got to love Dr.
Don't
Seuss.
keep your water on when you're brushing your teeth. That's what the Lorax says.
He said that?
Yeah, waste water.
Do you say that?
No, where does the water go? It just changes form. Okay, I live by 6 quadrillion gallons of water in the Great Lakes. So if you live in Arizona, yeah, maybe you could do a little better with that. But we recycle water. It gets recycled.
Take
so
that Lorax.
Yeah. What do you
I'm gonna
think
keep
you
the
know?
water on.
I'm just.
Why did that guy travel so far to find you? What do you know? Nothing.
Plant a tree in your backyard. That's what he also says.
Backyard, front yard, yes. Do it yourself. Yeah, do it yourself.
I was nervous.
Don't wait on your city to do it because the city has a 4-foot wide space in front of your house. What kind of a tree are you going to plant there? a tiny one.
Mm-hmm.
You have more land. So people, if you want to reforest, I'm in the circles where we hear about reforestation and such. In fact, the federal government is giving billions of dollars for reforestation effort. Well, basically, they're taking money from you and then they're giving it back, some of it back
Right, of course.
to people to reforest. And but private property owners have 10 times or 100 times the amount of space that municipalities do. So if we wait on municipalities to do it, as sincere as they might be, we're missing an opportunity because we have more space than they do. So rather than plant, when you plant a tree, it's not a tree. I don't know if you knew that.
It's a baby tree.
It's a shrub on a stick.
It's a shrub on a stick. I didn't expect that.
It's not actually a tree because it's going to take about 10 years to give you tree-like benefits. So we plant small trees and we get small results. We get big trees, we actually have big results.
We planted a tree.
Good for you.
Last year.
And I don't care if it's small or big, but just know we need to plant big trees.
Now,
So-
I think last time, though, you said I planted it wrong, though.
Well,
there are standards. So
But I still
no one's
planted one.
surprised.
I found that little tree thing on a stick, shrub on a stick, and I put it in the ground. It made flowers. It's very tiny. It's a magnolia tree.
they can be very nice, but again, there are if you ask someone how do you plant a tree, what's people are kind of
Dig a
looking.
hole, put it in.
That's pretty much it. Grab a shovel, Einstein. That's how you plant a tree. But that's not the case. There are actually standards. There are actually national standards about how to plant a tree.
I don't have many standards, clearly.
And that's probably an issue between you and God.
He's an ISA board certified master arborist, ready to answer your questions about getting your place ready for the spring. We would like you to be proud of us. So I'm already telling you how you're supposed to feel. So I'd like you to feel that.
Okay.
All of us have made sure to leave the ground cover
Yes.
on the ground for the pollinators. In fact, Daria ran outside and yelled at her husband.
I did.
What happened again?
He got mad at me, but he left it.
Yeah, she ran outside. Don't do that.
It's a helpful thing. I mean, if it's on the lawn and you have big piles and you don't want to kill
you're supposed to
your
be
lawn.
proud of us here. What?
Well, I am. I'm moving on from that point. I don't want to. Okay, I don't want to focus on that. Just pride it's got some edges that we have to worry about a little bit, but that's great, especially in flower beds and such. On the lawn, I'm a little okay with that, but yeah. So
Can I get rid of it yet?
Yeah, once you get temperatures that are more or less over and above 50 degrees for a good portion of the time, and again, that could be if we have a cold, long cold winter, that might not be until the end of April, or it could be the beginning of March, depending on the seasons. This year we had a really mild winter primarily because of El Nino, and so it's warmer, so you could probably start a little earlier because the soil temperature will warm up. So yeah, the longer you can wait, the better it is for the ground nesting pollinators.
So I irritated my husband for nothing.
No, but most people like irritating their spouses, at least just a little bit. It makes for interesting conversation around the breakfast table.
So Jimmy can clean up that stuff now.
Oh, he did a couple weeks ago.
Oh.
Got tired of looking at it.
Was that naughty?
Not really. If we can do a little bit more, a little bit better, I'm fine with that. Again, just because I'm cranky doesn't mean that I have to make everybody else cranky with me.
No, Lauren had a question about those little green roundy things.
Yes, my neighbor, we have a shared driveway, and she has a very large tree, and it rains little green dots. Little green
And it's really driving her crazy.
circles.
Which time of year now?
Yes, now.
What's I'm trying to think what's gonna
Flying
be
green
dropping.
dots. The flying green dot
They're
tree.
circles. They're like this big, and they're green with a little yellow, almost like a
Dodicus
lime green.
Maximus.
Well, most of the things that flowers early in the year are maples.
Maybe it's
So
that.
maybe it's dropping little bits of the flower. I thought you were talking about like sweet gum, which drop the little spiky balls. Sometimes
not
those
spiky
be
balls.
dropping. Welcome to nature. People love
Yeah.
nature. People love nature until nature starts behaving like nature. So
So she should just get over it.
get a
I wasn't
blow-
going to do anything about it.
Would you
Yes.
get over it?
I literally was just wondering what it was.
Get a,
okay.
get a
I don't
blower.
care.
Well, again, especially early season trees. Trees, have flowers. They pollinate, so they'll drop flowers. They'll drop portions of, flowers as they bloom. But again, early in the season, it's primarily maples, at least of the native trees. The problem is there are so many people that are planting so many non-native things. So to actually keep track of all the new species that are coming from everywhere, it's almost impossible. And then then the hybrids and the cultivars. good gravy. You know, it's so hard to keep track of.
Cultivars drive me nuts too.
Mm-hmm.
Now, my friend Foster is a naturalist with the Metro Parks,
Very nice.
and so I got that going for me.
You have no excuse though not to do right by your plants and trees.
I got a lot of excuses, but that's just another story for another day. Now, they do a native plant sale every year, but some
cool.
people don't realize it's like, I think milkweed is something people want a lot of for butterflies.
Well, for monarch butterflies specifically.
But is it really a weed?
No,
Milkweed?
it's not. Some people don't like it because it's really tall, but it gets a flower on it. The flower actually has a
You're
fragrance.
tall, we like you.
Well, you know, I don't have a flower though, so I, you know, but yeah, people call it a weed, but a weed is basically any plant that's in the wrong place. So an oak tree can be a weed if it's destroying the foundation of your house. That's the technical definition of a weed, is a plant that's in the wrong place.
Really?
So yeah, that's pretty much the technical
There's not
definition.
bad plants and good plants?
No, a plant is a plant, just wherever it is. I mean, you know, just it's
Some
the
of them
whole.
are bad,
It's
though.
the whole. Bad's
It's
a
just not
relative
doing what
term
you
in
want it
nature.
to do.
Hey, those
Yeah.
dandelions, get out of here.
Yeah,
Fine.
well, next time you go out when it's sunny and you see all the pollinators on the dandelions, you realize they have a place.
Oh.
So they
You're defending my wife. She doesn't care about them.
I don't care about them.
you know, it's just for those of us, we've been spoiled by golf courses where there's not a single, the good ones anyway, there's not a single weed or dandelion anywhere because of what they do. Every plant has a purpose. We just might not like it. So it's not the plant's fault.
Yeah,
Now,
it's our fault.
Again, a weed is a plant that's in some place where it shouldn't be. So you could have, black-eyed Susan, Rudbeckia, which is the Latin name, since I have to do Latin because that impresses people. They self-seed. So all of a sudden, you've got some varieties of daisies will self-seed. So if you got daisies that are encroaching into your shrubs, things like that they would be considered technically a weed
That
because
sounds fun,
it's not
though.
where you
They're
want.
flowers. They're daisies.
Yeah, but they're growing up in the middle of other plants that you don't want. You've got like evergreens, and they're starting to grow up, and they're starting to choke them out. So
Oh, yeah, that's bad then.
you know,
Okay, Brian, you need to stop
We have
talking.
so many questions.
Yeah, you need to stop.
Let's go. Let's do this.
How do I get a beautiful, fluffy green lawn? I use Scott's fertilizer in spring and fall. In the summer, I use Weed and Feed by Scott's. What am I doing wrong? I must say that the last year I over-fertilized and I had to reseed. I want a beautiful lawn without paying true green. Also, a landscaper suggested thrashing. Will this help?
Thrashing. That sounds violent.
well, they probably mean thatching or dethatching.
My child thrashes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, dethatching is actually a layer of dead grass material on top of the soil. But unless you've got like an inch and a half of thatch, that's just a part of nature. The biggest problem with lawns is people cut them too short. There's actually a standard for cutting lawns. They recommend between like 2 3/4 and 3.5 inches tall. The reason is you cut off all the plant reserves of the grass.
That's very tall.
It is tall.
You said 2.5?
2 3/4 to 3.5. I used to cut them about 3 inches. The reason is because if you cut it short, well, first off, if you want your lawn to look like a golf course, prepare to become a golf course superintendent, which means lots of mowing, lots of fertilizing, lots of watering, lots of fungicides, because you've got a plant, and then you make the plant like a quarter of the height that it wants to be. The taller, the better. Plus, it also competes with weeds, because it's actually utilizing resource. It's shading the soil, which keeps the soil cooler, and it also, some of the weed seeds will actually get caught up in the grass, and they won't get to the ground to actually grow. So if you want a healthy lawn, it needs to be high. And I know a lot of people don't want to do that. I hear people, this time of year, I hate it because the grass grows so fast, and you hear your neighbor or somebody out there, and you can just hear the mower. It's like, it's choking, and it's just grinding. And I'm like, no, your lawnmower is not a sander. Too many people use it like that. So no, if you want a lawn, it might not be magic, but it's also the 4 and 5 step programs. There are legitimate reasons for that. That's fine. But we live in Northeast Ohio, and Northeast Ohio has great soil because our soil is 30, 40, 50% clay. Now, some people are like, oh my gosh, that horrible clay. Clay is actually a great soil. It's the best soil there can be.
Told you, Lauren.
Because it holds moisture and it holds nutrients. Sandy and silt soils don't hold as much nutrients. The problem with clay is when you compact it. If you compact it, there's no space for roots and air and water to move in the soil. So clay soil is great. So most people don't do a soil test. And I mean an actual lab test, not just a little thing you can buy at the hardware store for $6. And there's no scientific instrument that costs $6. Okay, so just so you know that, or no accurate scientific tool. But so I don't do much fertilization because, generally speaking, I don't need it. Every time it rains, you get water soluble nitrogen from the sky. It's why lawns green up. It's because nitrogen is your nitrogen fertilizer.
So just leave it longer, and it should be okay.
It should be better. I can't say that weeds won't grow in it. For me, my daughter loves the clover, and she loves oxalis and some of the flowering things in the lawn. Most people are like, if I see a yellow flower or white flower on my lawn, it's a bad thing.
Yeah, Sarah likes that. My wife, she loves those little flowery things.
So if you don't want to put down, weed killer, you don't have to. I use a spot weed treatment for the big weedy, gnarly things that stick up and that kind of stuff. And you can spot treat in between the clover, because if you leave the clover, now you've got stuff for pollinators.
Okay, so we'll leave it a little longer.
Yes.
How do I get my massive infestation of crabgrass, get rid of my massive infestation of crabgrass without tilling up the entire yard and reseeding?
Crabgrass, actually, it's now starting to, crabgrass germinates based on soil temperature. And the soil temperature is about right for that. So crabgrass is just now starting to seed. So when you go to the hardware store or wherever you buy your fertilizers and stuff, they'll have something called a preventative, a pre-emergent herbicide, the crabgrass preventer. But you have to get that in the soil before the weed seeds start germinating.
So it's too late.
Crabgrass. Now it's probably too late for the pre-emergent. That's why you have that treatment come out. Usually April is, maybe late March is a good time, because that only has a 30 or a 45-day window when it's actually effective with that. So if you miss the initial pre-emergent side of things, and there's a whole side of pre-emergent herbicides and grass seed, where you can't put down grass seed after you put down pre-emergence, because it keeps seeds from germinating, including grass seed. So if you treat for crabgrass with a pre-emergent and then you reseed, you basically just wasted your money. So you have to if you're going to reseed early in the year, you have to put down, if you're going to put down fertilizer, you can't have a pre-emergent, because it'll keep the grass seed from germinating. But the other thing that you can do is you have to spray, use a crabgrass killer. And a lot of weed killers actually have a crabgrass killer in it. Then you have to use a topical spray throughout the year.
Sounds like a lot of work.
It can be. If you lose out and you've already got a lot of crabgrass in the yard, it might take a couple of seasons to really bring it under control. But the smaller the crabgrass is, the more vulnerable it will be, or the more effective your crabgrass killer will be. So if you wait until the crabgrass looks like a gigantic crab in the middle of your lawn, it's probably too late for that season. But a pre-emergent to keep the new weed seeds of crabgrass from germinating, and then a post, which is usually just like a spray that you can get. But it can take, tilling up your yard, all you do oftentimes when you till up a yard is you actually break up the soil and then you grind in all the weed seeds. And so you actually sometimes have more weeds after the fact.
Oh, goodness.
So I wouldn't recommend doing that, but it may be outside of the window for the for crabgrass preventer this time, because we had a warm late winter and early spring. But then you can spray stuff, but get it early, and you probably have to put a couple of treatments. But you can do spot treatments as opposed to go over your entire yard with it. So you can be a little bit more friendly to the environment with that. It's a challenge, but if you miss early, then you can't use the pre-emergence.
What's the best way to get rid of, here we go, lesser celandine?
Lesser celandine?
Celandine.
Napalm.
God bless you.
Yeah. Lesser celandine is actually, I went into an old client's yard. I planted a tree for her years ago, and since I'm retired from landscaping, I just was driving by and I thought, I'll stop out there. I don't think she's going to shoot me for walking in her backyard. She didn't. Her yard is full of lesser celandine. It's an invasive. The Ohio Department of Natural Resources is all about this. If you go out now into the metro parks, you'll see low growing green things with pretty little yellow flowers. It's not marsh marigold, which is a native. It's lesser celandine. Lesser celandine is almost impossible to get rid of because it spreads by little tubers and stems underneath the ground. So whatever you get up here, there's at least that much and more underneath.
So
and
just give up?
No, well, it just depends on.
Well, I don't know.
Well, ask the Metro Parks. The Metro Parks is not able to. They want to be able to treat this, but the only way to treat it is by chemically treating, and they're kind of concerned about doing too much of that. If it's in the yard, a weed killer will often get it, but this is another one that you just would have to treat. And you look on the label of what you're getting as far as weed killers and see if it's listed on there. I might actually recommend going to There's something called the Buckeye Yard and Garden Line, BYGL. It's affectionately called Beagle. It's a bunch of folks from Ohio State University. If you go to the Buckeye Yard and Garden Line, they'll explain about lesser celandine and might actually give you options for treatment. But it's incredibly difficult to get rid of. And literally, you can spread it. Your lawn care company can spread it from yard to yard because it gets in the mowers and the wheels and such. And as a former landscaper, you can't clean your mower after every yard.
Right.
No.
So you're going to spread that stuff. So yeah, it's out there. But the Buckeye Yard and Garden Line is a good resource for that. It's difficult though. It looks pretty, but it's like the Blob. It just takes over. You have an Olympic level skill for self-justification. So if I wasn't here, you'd come up with a reason anyway.
I didn't know you did that for John Palmer.
Of course I did.
Ron Eastwood.
Thank you, Mr. Ron. That was very kind of you.
I'm good.
You know you've arrived as a guest when Ron has made a mashup for you.
Yeah, right.
Some sort of montage.
Well, I have Olympic size a lot of things, including opinions and ego. And I had somebody once say, I said I've got a huge ego. She goes, no, I don't think you have a huge ego. You have a huge personality. And I'm like, okay, that's much better.
That's nice.
I think it's true.
I might chisel that, have that chiseled on my headstone.
He's got a big personality. Okay, John Palmer, ISA Board Certified Master Arborist, answering your questions about all things planty. That's a technical term. We have a lot of questions, so let's get rolling here.
About how much does it cost to have an arborist out to give advice on trees that might need to be cleaned out?
Well, I can't speak to anybody else besides myself, but generally you've got two things. If you want to know how your tree's doing, then you have somebody out to, like you're going to a doctor. You're trying to get an update on your health.
Who do you call for that?
Well, ISA Certified Arborists. You can go to this as a website for the Ohio chapter of ISA, and it's I'm forgetting it's trees, the number 4, Ohio.org. Sorry, I blanked out there. Trees, the number 4, Ohio.org. And it says find an arborist. But there's a difference between an arborist and a dude that works on trees. I consider it kind of like tree doctor versus tree undertaker. Somebody just cut things off and cut things down. Now, if you have a tree and it's got some dead wood, which most trees have, it's a normal part of the process, nature being nature. We call it branch shedding. If you're going to have somebody come out to do an estimate to do work on the tree, they should come out and do a free estimate. So they come out and say, okay, you got a 30-inch diameter Gladitsia tricanthus. We're going to come up here. We're going to make a certain number of cuts, and then you can have somebody. So free estimates for a work on a tree is different than having somebody out as a consultant
To just look at it and say, that one looks good. Stop doing this with that one.
We spend a little bit more time than that, so it's not just looking at just giving it. It's not like Caesar giving it thumbs up or thumbs down, and then we go and you pay us exorbitant amounts of money. But ISA certified arborists have a code of ethics. We adhere to standards. We have to do ongoing training. It's different than somebody who just works on trees, unfortunately. And most tree companies they're just people that work on trees. Now, I'm not saying they're bad people, but I'm saying that there's a difference between competencies, and the ISA certified arborists are committed to that.
So go to one more time the website.
Trees, the number 4, Ohio.org.
There you go. All right.
Excuse me.
We have a huge, beautiful magnolia tree that has wonderful flowers that get destroyed by frost 9 out of 10 years the day after the blooms open. The tree is 30 feet high and 45 feet wide. Anything we can do to war against the frost?
No. Actually,
I love magnolia
you cannot.
trees.
Yeah, unless you're going to dig it up and move it to Louisville. The problem is there are certain species of magnolia that bloom at the perfect time when we have frosts and freezes. That's one of the reasons it actually can be a bad tree. You don't get to see the bloom because the frost. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I love magnolia trees.
And the tree looks fine. It's just you lose the blooms.
No, the tree looks beautiful. Carry on.
Okay, fine. Obviously, that's another personal problem I have to deal with here. But yeah, the problem is it's in the right tree in the wrong place.
Okay.
They will survive, but there are new cultivars of magnolia. What we need to do is we need to find magnolias that bloom about a month later, because they'll be past that frost and freeze. So no, I have a buddy. In fact, my buddy Jay from Eclipse Over Cleveland, I've known Jay for 40 years. He's got a magnolia in the front of his yard, and he hates it because, like, hey, look at it's blooming, and then snow, rain, it's 31 degrees and all the blooms get wiped out. So he's like, why do we even have this tree?
So there's nothing we can do.
No.
So that person should give up.
No, that person should just
Enjoy
realize,
the tree they have.
Yeah, exactly. And just,
Take lots of pictures that day.
it's unfortunately what you would need to do is actually move the climate north or get the cold out of here, or move it about 300 miles south.
Okay.
It's just at the edge of its range. So the tree will survive, but you just lose the blooms. But if you're thinking of planting a magnolia, a new one, do a little research and find out. And don't just use the hardiness zones. Please, please, please. The hardiness zone map. If you're familiar with the hardiness zone map, like you look on you go to the nursery and there's a card that says you can plant this in zone 3 to zone 7. The hardiness zone map is very, very, it can be misleading because it's only one factor, because it just measures low temperature. So don't look at that, but look and find out maybe when the bloom time is, because you need to find a magnolia that's going to be more amenable to colder temperatures early in the year, or when it blooms later. So they might still survive, but yeah, there's nothing. Unfortunately, I'm sorry. I know I'm a bearer of bad news often, but there's nothing you can do.
I found out I did something else wrong there. We went to a nursery. We got a magnolia tree and then planted it. There was no research there.
Well, you didn't ask John, so.
Well,
he wasn't there.
It might work out. It might not. Now, there's other places. Again, the listenership of this audience is massive in massive areas. So there are things called microclimates. So if the magnolia is, shielded by buildings or more trees, or is on maybe the south side of building where it's going to get more sun as opposed to the north side, those little changes in that microclimate can actually do better. So
Put on the north side.
Shady.
Oh, no.
Replant it. You see, it feels like you did it recently.
I'm giving up. He won't let anyone else give up, but I will.
Okay.
Go ahead.
Are there any flowering trees that do well in shade?
Flowering trees in shade, generally not really, because they need sunlight in order to produce flowers. And trees can actually flower. You're putting in different environments for the amount of sunlight they're going to get, and you'll actually see more or less flowers depending on that. So generally no, but the ones that do flower in shade are understory trees like dogwood. So when you see short trees, just think of short trees in the context of nature and the forest. The short trees are going to be getting less sunlight because of the big trees. So yes, understory trees will do better. So dogwood, there's varieties of dogwoods. Serviceberry is another one that might do a little bit better. But yeah, shorter ornamental trees. A lot of those trees are edge trees. You won't find them in the middle of the forest, but you'll see them along the edge. So that's where they might get some dappled shade. So there are things that can work. The shorter the tree is more amenable, and usually the shorter the trees are the ones that flower. So you might think about Cornelian cherry dogwood, or there's two types of dogwoods. You have the native dogwood, which is Cornus florida. No, I know it's confusing. It's Cornus florida is native to Ohio, and then you have Kuza dogwood, which is the Asian variety of dogwood.
I like when you talk trees. I don't really know what you're saying, but you say lots of words and.
Well, it's the Latin.
things.
I throw Latin out just to try to. It's just for obfuscation.
Whenever I try to say Latin, it always ends up with Maximus.
Yes, of course.
You heard me try yesterday. We were talking about John coming, and I was like, well, I don't know. I guess gluteus maximus is not the proper.
Well, it's a medical. It's a medical term.
It's
so
not a plant term.
No.
So.
Any advice how to rewild your yard native plants and wildflowers, like a pollinator sanctuary?
You can do that. In fact, my daughter and I are going to do that. We're going to do a little strip along the house. We're just going to put wildflowers.
Well, but some places you can't do that according to city rules, right? To just let your lawn go free?
Yeah, I think letting the lawn go is different than just putting in, say, a little pollinator place along your house or something like that.
It has to be in a particular area, right?
Every city's different, so I'm not sure exactly what that is. But to me, it's not about letting your lawn go. It's just having less lawn. So, what I do, in fact, what I'm going to do is actually go and actually just take off. If you're going to do a large area, maybe just rent a sod cutter and just cut the top 1.5 inches of turf off and just leave the soil. And then you can just plant some wildflowers there. But the whole native, non-native thing, it's actually becoming more complex. Because a lot of the things that have affected, especially from a tree standpoint, I was with a former employee of this, Ohio Department of Natural Resources yesterday. Native is, first off, if you live in a city, there's nothing native about what's going on, even if it's Ohio. Concrete is not native. Asphalt is not native. Driveways, buildings. We've changed in the last few hundred years. So non-native trees is not necessarily as bad a thing. So I'm not an ideologue when it comes to that. I know there some people are like, oh, we got to plant all native stuff. Well, don't forget, when you see that cute little honeybee buzzing around your dandelion, that's a non-native. That's not native to North America.
Dandelions?
That is, yeah. Well, those
Where are they from?
Honeybees are
honeybees.
They're the European honeybee. They were brought over by Europeans because they needed honey and wax. They brought them over in the 1600s. Earthworms, the main big earthworm that we see, it's an introduced species. It's non-native. So the challenge between native and non-native is when we have like a non-native insect like emerald ash borer for those that had ash trees, for elm trees, Dutch elm disease, chestnut blight, which wiped out the American chestnut 75 years ago. That's all non-native pests and pathogens. If we only plant native trees, the next time a non-native a pest comes over, what's it going to kill? It's going to kill all the native trees that don't have an environmental a balance. So from an ash tree standpoint, for emerald ash borer, they have ash trees in Asia, which is where emerald ash borer came from. Emerald ash borer doesn't kill ash trees in Asia, but it kills North American ash trees because it's an introduced species. They have no resistance to that.
Did you write that down?
So I know it's nerdy. This is what I do. Sorry.
No, I like nerdy stuff. Keep going.
So if we only plant native trees, the next non-native pest or pathogen that may come over, and it happens. We live in a global world now. We get stuff from all over the world. The next one that comes over, we could lose an entire species because they have no resistance against that non-native pest. So
there's philosophical debates among arborists.
They're just like in every other thing, sports franchises, whatever it is. There's and it's nature. Nature is a moving target. You ask 10 arborists about something or other, you're going to get 10 variations on a theme. Generally, what we agree on is what's bad. So we won't do this. But when you ask us what to do, then there's going to be a lot of variations. So the whole native, non-native is a little bit more complex with that. But, letting lawns go, you're going to have the city, whoever your city is going to send you a letter, and you're going to say you're a bad, we're going to come over and mow your lawn and charge you $400.
Yeah.
And that. So, yes, you can plant stuff. Pollinators are good, but a mix is okay. And again, I'm not an ideologue when it comes to native, non-native. So if we plant some non-native stuff, I'm okay with that. Because it gives us more resiliency in the landscape.
7:49 here. A few more minutes with our friend John Palmer. He's an ISA board certified master arborist. We love this guy. He's a lot of fun, and he's answering your questions about what you ought to be doing with your plants and stuff. This is the way I put it.
And stuff.
Is that on your business card?
No, but I did want to get a business card once that just said I'm a professional noticer. People pay me to notice things.
Lauren had a slogan for you earlier, remember?
I don't
Oh,
remember.
I've had many slogans, and most of them are, we'll just keep them between us.
Yeah, I think it was question about your lawn, ask John.
It's pretty good.
I'm okay with all of it.
All right, next one.
How do I get rid of all these thistles? I've dug layers of cardboard and put layers of mulch on top, and they still pop through.
Oh, he's shaking his head. He's so mad about this.
Well, unfortunately, you're putting a lot of effort into something that's not effective at all. Basically, if you cover the lawn, even cardboard actually, there's actually compounds in cardboard, so people think that putting cardboard is actually good for weed suppression or whatever. It's generally not.
Oh no.
And the other thing is what you do is you heat up the soil. And what you can do is you can actually injure or damage the microbiome, the living organisms and things. So generally, no. I know people don't want to spray stuff because thistle is one of the things that actually does have a very deep taproot. It's like a dandelion. If you pull it and pull out 2/3 of the root, it'll be back. So if you're going to do it, I actually spot treat with either a weed killer or even, I know some people, we could have the discussion, but not here, about using glyphosate, Roundup, which if you use it safely, it's actually a safe chemical, and just do it, but get it when it's little. Don't wait till it's 6 or 10 or 15 inches. When it's coming up in the lawn, when you see that thing that's an inch tall, spray it. And get it early. Again, it's like, would you rather arm wrestle Arnold Schwarzenegger when he was 12 or when he was 25?
I'm going to go 12.
Yeah,
I'm going to go 12.
It's like that with weeds. Get it. The smaller they are, the better, and the more susceptible they are to
My
treatment.
wife was right again. She uses Roundup, and you're not mad at her for that.
It's not if you use it properly. Again, for me as an applicator, it's called the label is the law. So I have to use it. If it's used properly, glyphosate has a very, very short half-life, so it breaks down very quickly in the environment. Do we overuse it? Probably. Can it injure and damage other things that we don't want? Yes, it can. But if used properly, don't use it on a windy day, because then you get all the volatilized small particles can actually drift, and so you get non-target destruction that happens with that. So so don't just stand up. If you're 6 feet tall and you hold the bottle 5 feet above and just spray and kind of hope you get
in
it.
the air.
No, that's not. You have
Perfume.
to be. Yeah, you have to. Yeah, it's not an atomizer, although it will actually atomize the small particles. So get down close to it and do that, and you're going to be much more safe.
Okay. We just moved and found the previous owners accidentally planted field grass in our yard. Is there any way to change that to regular grass?
I'm not a real expert on quote-unquote field grass, whatever that is, because a lot of times people will describe stuff, and it may not be exactly what it is. So I'm not exactly sure what field grass is.
Well, they don't like the type of grass.
Like if it's really thick-bladed stuff that's more like you would see in farmland, things like that. I'm not sure about that, what you would want to do about that. It may just be, again, if you want to injure it, cut it. Use your lawnmower like a sander. Cut it to the ground, and then try to do that. But it's challenge. Once something like that gets into a lawn, it can be a challenge, especially on a large scale, because it's cost prohibitive for most people to do stuff like that. So that's a challenging endeavor.
Okay. How do you get rid of these green onions in your yard and landscaping? We dig them out at the bulb, but there's so many.
There are so many. This is another one that's really wild onion and wild garlic. They actually grow in lawns.
Could you eat it?
Yes, you can. If you mow over it, you smell onion, you're like, wow, look at that.
Let's eat them then. That's easy.
They're a cool season, so you'll see them grow in February, March, April. They like cool temperatures, and you'll see them grow again in September, October, November. So they're cool season. They're another one that you just have to go in with a weed killer that's labeled for wild onion and wild garlic. Get it while it's young, but you'll have to make multiple treatments, maybe 1 or 2 in a season. Come back, so you have to do it again because they're cool season. Fall, spring, the following fall, maybe the following spring. So it will take multiple seasons, and it's one of those things. So I don't know of a way to do it without chemicals with that. So again, just apply the chemicals properly according to the label. Make sure it's, again, usually they have the little tear off the things where you can peel off the little label on the back of the weed killer, and it'll say like weeds that it kills. So find the weed that you're trying to get rid of, and then treat that way. But that's difficult when it's in a lawn because it's everywhere.
Yeah. I have a heavily shaded and damp part of the yard that I have tried unsuccessfully for 2 years to grow grass. Is there something different I can plant that will withstand mowing and foot traffic?
Sounds like they need some sort of, I'm going to guess now, tree or shrub that drinks lots of water.
Well, technically speaking, but since you plant trees and they're just shrubs on stick, it's not going to be a quick fix. Yeah, 15 years.
Again.
But there are things. There are trees that you can plant. So
but there's not grasses you could put in an area like that, right?
Not really. Without sunlight, it's just the grass isn't going to grow. And then certain types. There's no miracle grass, by the way, for shade. Okay, if you notice, it's just not. People sell it that way. Oh, it's a shade seed. Well, shade means part sun. Not all shade. It has to have some sunlight. So some varieties of grass are a little hardier in that. But just look at what nature does. I like to try to duplicate nature wherever possible. So in nature, where there's trees, there's no grass. Where there's grass, there's no trees. So nature has pretty much determined that trees and grass aren't good bedfellows. If you have moisture issues, sometimes just actually putting more soil there and just raising the level of the soil. As long as you don't do it around trees, because you bury tree roots, you can actually cause the tree to decline. But if you put more, you don't get rid of the water. What you do is, with more soil, it's like just a bigger sponge to hold more of the water. So you put 6 inches of soil in a low area. Now there's 6 inches between you and the water below. The water isn't going to go anywhere. It's just going to be soaked into that soil. So if you have a low area, that can be a fairly inexpensive way to go. Have some soil delivered to your property, invite the local, high school football team over in a couple of wheelbarrows, and just, do something like that. So just raising soil in low areas.
But if it's shaded, you're not going to still get any grass growing there.
Most likely, correct.
So maybe consider a shrub or a tree,
or a larger mulch area. Spread the mulch out. Just stay off it. Mulch is, big chunky, double shredded mulch. just put that down, and then you can walk over it, and it's not going to be as muddy. So if you have dogs and you're trying to keep them out of the mud or whatever, sometimes just, mulch beds around trees and yards don't have to be small. They can be much wider, and sometimes it's actually better for that.
Great.
There you go.
We have 2 questions about how to get rid of poison ivy in a yard.
Carefully.
Rub your face on it.
Find
No, probably not.
somebody like me who's not particularly sensitive to poison
Yeah,
ivy.
I learned this from my wife that not everyone is sensitive to it.
We're all will have a certain reaction, but some people are super. I have a good friend of mine who's super sensitive to that. Not really. What I try to do with it is.
Goats eat it, by the way. You can get a goat.
Call Brian for a goat.
No, they do.
Goats
They
are
eat it.
Goats
Sarah's
are
done
us.
that.
Brian will bring his goat to your house.
Yeah, they'll eat your poison ivy. It's true.
So yeah, it depends on what if it's growing up trees and sides of houses. You can cut it off at the ground and then just pull the vines. But again, you're covered up, so you don't want to do it in hot temperature because you want to cover everything and you're going to roast if you do it on a hot day. When it's dry, it'll kind of break off and it'll break up in pieces, and it's hard to take off. But if it's live and you pull it, sometimes the sap and the fluids in that can actually get into the air and cause you a problem. So it's dicey. Be gentle with it, but it can be sprayed. It can be sprayed to be.
What about
to be killed.
burning it with one of those like weed torches? You just like punish it by burning it?
There's a lot of stuff on the internet that I'm not so. I can't tell you that there's any real. I don't have any experience and any science behind that.
I feel like if you burn it, then the stuff goes into the air still.
Well, but
and then it
people
gets in your eyes.
sell the weed torch. I got a weed torch. It's
Yeah, but
like
not for
a
poison
blowtorch,
ivy.
basically.
Well, yeah, but that's something you could use on your sidewalk or something
yeah.
where you can just kind of.
We're talking about poison ivy here, Brian.
Yeah,
Well,
and
yeah,
it
maybe some
depends
driveway,
on
I
how
don't
big it is. So, I would say off season, like dormant season. So in the colder temperatures.
Okay.
Now really the only option is probably just to spray
Mm-hmm.
and to try to kill what's there.
But it's spot treat the poison ivy is what you're saying.
Yeah, because the only thing that's going to kill it is going to kill everything. So when you get something like a glyphosate or a Roundup, it's called a non-selective herbicide for a reason. It does anything green dies. So you don't plant it, you don't spray it around trees, and anything like that. But that's another difficult one. But be gentle, whatever you do. If you're a Type A personality, don't take out poison ivy because then you start ripping it down. It's like you're having it's like a CrossFit training something. No, you don't want to do that. Be very, very, very
That's
delicate.
absolutely what I would have done.
Yeah.
Yeah, because people get mad at it. They're like, "I'm going to punish you, poison ivy. You're so
No, and
mean."
the poison ivy is just smirking at you when you say that because it's going to come back and get you.
Okay, so let's squeeze in one more, Lauren.
That's all the questions we have.
That's all of it. We did it.
We did it.
Oh, we did it.
Wow, I'm never beyond time. Ron would know that. I'm always over time. it's my life.
Well, not anymore. John Palmer, again, friend of the show, also an ISA board certified master arborist. The best way to find him, I think, you're on. Is it X?
Well,
is that where you are?
There's a couple of ways. I don't do a lot with online presence because I've been doing this for so long. Everybody just knows me. It's like I go down the street and you're like, hey, I got a question about my. Yeah,
Yes.
you'd be surprised. On X, I'm at Cranky Arborist, and also I have a video channel on the Rumble platform called Nose to Nose with Nature, which is just me and a GoPro. I just stop in the middle of the street somewhere, jump out, grab my GoPro, talk extemporaneously. It's not edited. It's not anything. It's not pretty. So if I get stung, you're going to hear me scream. I'm not going to edit that out. But it's just talking about everything. I actually did a video of the eclipse. I also did one recently about what to prune early in the year. So again, I don't do a ton of content, but those are the two ways really online to get a hold of me.
And now, Daria, if he wants to watch this, or if somebody wants to watch this again, or John wants to watch himself, it's on YouTube, right?
It will be on YouTube later.
Later today, you'll be able to
Very
get
nice.
this on YouTube. So
Scary.
watch for that. Yeah.
I got a face for radio, so sorry, folks. I don't know what
Welcome to
what
the
tell you.
club, buddy.
Yeah.
You're in good company, except for the ladies. They look great.
Thank
Ron.
you, everybody, for having me and putting up with me. I appreciate it.
Oh,
Thank you,
thanks.
John Palmer.